Welcome to Something to Say, where we bring voices from diverse backgrounds who will share their unique stories and perspectives on finding their passion and provide insights on how you can find yours. Join us as host Greg DeShields guides us through this enlightening journey.
Welcome to a special episode of Something to Say podcast, a unique platform that amplifies the voices of individuals from various backgrounds sharing their passion. I'm your host, Greg DeShields, and I'm excited to bring you a very special podcast episode promoting MenzFit's 17th anniversary celebration fashion event. It's scheduled for June 5th at the Philadelphia Zoo, and the event tagline is Who Wore It Best? And I'm sure as we talk to our guests, we'll get a better sense of how all of that unfolds. Today, I'm really thrilled to introduce Rhonda Willingham, founder and president of MenzFit. For 20 years, Rhonda has been advocating for the disenfranchised, unemployed, underemployed, and underserved who are primarily Black and Brown men. She is the founder and president of MenzFit, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to ensure gainful employment, job interview preparation, professional apparel, and mentorship as they seek and achieve employment to support themselves as well as their families. Before starting MenzFit, Rhonda's work experience had been in the areas of public relations and community outreach and has focused primarily on children, the senior population, and military families. She served as a political appointee in the Clinton-Gore administration at the Department of Labor, where she was a special assistant responsible for community outreach and public affairs. She has received several honors, and I have to at least name a few of them because they're pretty cool. The first runner-up for the Madam C.J. Walker Award, the Philadelphia Tribune Newspaper Leader Award, the Women of Excellence Award, the Shiro Award by WDS-FM in Philadelphia, and the Women of Substance and Style Award from Joan Shep Retail Store in Philadelphia. Quite impressive. She is a native, of course, of Philadelphia and holds a master's degree in journalism and communication from American University in Washington, D.C. And she is a fellow of Leadership Philadelphia, class of 2011. I think I was class of 2015, so congrats there. So let's just dive into it. Rhonda, welcome to Something to Say. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg, for having me. I definitely have something to say.
So this particular opportunity for you to interview is one that I'm really excited to dive into. And I do appreciate with all of the planning and organizing that you have for the upcoming MenzFit fashion event on June 5th, that there are a million things to do. So I'm glad you are going to give us a few minutes to just chat with us here on Something to Say and talk a lot about the upcoming event.
Yes, absolutely. So we're excited and thrilled that we're able to sort of resume this fashion show. We haven't done it since 2019. Obviously, COVID was a big factor in that. And there have been a lot of discussion and folks saying, when are you going to bring the fashion show back? It was so much fun. And so we decided last year that we would do it this year. And I am a huge cat fan. I love the felines are my favorite animals. And so I've always wanted to have an event at the zoo. And so we just kind of said, well, let's do this event at the zoo. We've grown the other space that we used to have it at. And I think this would be an opportunity, since we haven't done it since 2019, to really elevate not only the event, but the mission, build awareness and visibility for MenzFit as well. So we're thrilled that June 5th is the day, 6 to 10. The event will feature members of the Philadelphia City Council, as well as some state legislators, and they will walk the catwalk to determine who wore it best.
Wow. Everything seems to be set up for a fantastic event. And I think amongst the things, though, aside from your event, I'd love for people to get to know you a little bit better. So to that degree, we have 3 get to know you questions. So I'd love to ask you those questions, and then we'll dive a little bit further and learn a little bit more about your history and, of course, about MenzFit. So my first question to you is, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be and why?
Wow. If I could have dinner with any historical figure, Barack Obama.
Ah,
And the reason being is that I remember, as you mentioned my bio, I worked in the Clinton administration and I was often up on the Hill. And I remember times just seeing, he was senator then, Senator Obama, just like on the Hill, having a glass of wine. And so in my mind, it's sort of what would make you want to be president of the United States? That's a huge task. We all know that his hair got gray after the first year, let alone the first term. So just like what is it about that office why did you feel like you wanted to run for president?
Wow. And of course, the question would be, what would you eat?
Right. What would I eat with President Obama, former President Obama? Wow, because I'm a big foodie. Yeah, well, hey, if it's in Chicago, we have to do deep dish pizza
Deep
and a
dish
glass of
pizza,
wine.
that's it.
Right.
So this particular question really kind of centers upon how you really approach your productivity and your well-being each day. So, are there specific habits or routines that you have that you really believe contributes to your productivity and your well-being during the course of the day? And I would imagine that you probably embrace that quite a bit now as you plan your event.
Yes, absolutely. So my routine is sort of it's a routine. So I get up and I spend an hour with myself. And that hour could be reading something that I need to read for my day or just gaining some knowledge about anything that would help me during the course of my day. From there, it's typically emails and phone calls in the morning, and most of my afternoon is dedicated to serving the clients that MenzFit serves. I
Right.
also, like to work out. I haven't worked out as much as I should here lately over these last few weeks planning this event, but I love to work out. I'm a big runner. I used to play basketball in high school. So working out and staying physically fit has always been something that I've made time for.
Wow. Well, you're in good company. I think just about everybody we've interviewed, we ask them that question. They feel bad that they haven't done as much as they should, but they are still committed to it, which is awesome. All right, so I'll go a little bit deeper. And like I said, I think as we think about the type of commitment and passion and effort that you've been putting into your event, this question is probably extremely relevant. How do you balance your work life with your interests and passions?
Wow. So fortunate it's challenging at times, Greg. But fortunately for me, they coincide. I'm a very extroverted person. Um and I'm a people person. As you mentioned, public relations is my background for a reason. Those kinds of skill sets come innately to me. They're not a hard lift, they're not a hard struggle. So if I'm at an event, yes, I'm there to have a good time, but I'm also there to network. So it almost gives me an opportunity to have fun while I'm doing work. And then on my weekends, I like to unwind and relax because most of my socializing has been done during the week. So on the weekends, then it's time to create some time for family. I try to spend at least one day a week with my mom. We have dinner, we do some activity together, and then I just chill out. In the fall, I'm a big sports fan, huge. I mean, I'm a big sports fan anyway, but in the fall, football is my favorite. So I am just like I'm a football nerd in that respect.
Well, it's interesting. We talk to a lot of people and try to get insight about how they balance it. But for many, the passion that they have is really tied to their work. And in some cases, work doesn't necessarily seem like work, especially like as you said, you have a lot of socializing and networking, which is a lot of fun. Which, by the way, I have to point out, through networking at the Garces Foundation event, we connected to do this podcast.
Exactly.
So podcasting as well as socializing at events does have a great outcome, and that's this particular conversation. But I want to dive a little bit more, and we've talked in broad terms about Men's Fit, but can you tell us the history of Men's Fit?
Sure, sure. So when I lived in Washington, I actually started Men's Fit in DC 21 years ago. We opened in Philadelphia 17 years ago, but nothing profound. I worked at the Department of Labor, so I did a lot of public affairs work around employment and training, workers' compensation, and so forth. And I was volunteering at an organization similar for Men's Fit, but for women. And I just asked them one day, was there an organization like this for men? Because I thought that men could benefit from the same services. And so, to their knowledge, it was not. And I just got out on the internet and learned a couple things. The first thing I learned was that there was only one other person doing anything remotely like Men's Fit, and they were out of New York. And then the second thing I learned is that there were not many organizations that even catered to men. Most nonprofits focus on women, children, and disease, as they should. But I just thought that if we could get our men together, many of the organizations that exist for women, they would not need to exist. They exist because the man is missing from the household.
Hmm.
And so that was a niche that I thought that I could do, given the fact of my PR skills, one, but I'm also a certified image consultant. So from a fashion standpoint, I have some sense of style. And I always saw myself as an entrepreneur. So I thought this was one way to do that. And so I just pulled together a group of men that I respected, valued their opinion. We sat down at a table, talked about the concept. They were completely on board at first here. And then we just put together our spheres of influence and went from there.
Wow. I do want to go back and talk about fashion because your event is a fashion event. You've kind of indicated that you have a good sense of style. So, what are your views on fashion? Like, exactly how does it really impact the success of individuals?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I mean, fashion is subjective, right? I mean, fashion to you could look different to me. But I think that when people have an opportunity to learn how to embrace their personal style, because everyone has one, and still fit within, what's relevant, what's hot, and so forth. But I think that starts with understanding your lifestyle. Most, as I tell women all the time, most people wear 25% of their clothing 75% of the time. And one reason it is because they don't even know what's in their wardrobe, number one. And many of them don't like what's in their wardrobe. So it's always about assessing your own personal style. What is it that you do? What is you not only what you do for work, but what do you do socially? Your wardrobe should reflect that.
Wow. That's great insight. And I can't believe what you were saying. We wear 25% of and leave that other 70. I do that completely. So
Right, because it's comfortable, and
it
and
is.
given the fact that, post-COVID, I mean, I can say some things for myself, "Oh, I don't wanna wear that." Not that I don't like that, but this is more comfortable because we've
Yeah.
gotten sort of into that casual, comfortable,
Mm.
flowy kinda vibe,
Wow.
so it's hard to kinda put that stiff suit back on on a daily basis. I mean, obviously, we do that when we need to, but
Right.
but prior to COVID, we were always dressed.
Wow. So, there's probably a million questions I want to ask you about fashion, but I do want to stick to the script. I do want to ask you this one. What has been the biggest challenge as it relates to the success of Men's Fit?
Funding.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality. And that's a good question, Greg, because I focus on a demographic that historically has gotten no attention. It has only been as a result mental health, criminal justice reform, social injustice that we're now beginning to look at Black and brown men differently. George Floyd being, one of those situations, everything that's going on in our country around police brutality and so forth. And so that has helped us in a sense of there are more opportunities, there are more grant opportunities available for us to apply for. It's more of a national issue where people are focused and putting money into, organizations that do the work. So that's been helpful to us. Prior to that, um, we've had to. It's been difficult, quite frankly. I mean, there's only so much money to go around.
Mhm.
So unless you are doing something different, or you're doing something that has some sort of a niche, and you're starting out, it's hard to get funding for certain things. But
Mhm.
fortunately, we've had a support system. State Senator Anthony Williams gave us our grant to open here 17 years ago, and he's helped us
Mhm.
along the way. So
How does the contribution of clothes help to support perhaps a gap in funding?
I would say, well, I mean, there's value on that, and people who donate clothing to us in particular, they determine the value of what they've donated. But the value, I think, the value added piece is not necessarily the men's fit; it's to the client.
Mm.
We're at a point now where we typically give a client just about a week's worth of clothing.
Mm.
So a suit, Even though people are not necessarily wearing suits on a regular basis, every man should have a suit in their closet. So
Right.
you're always going to get a suit from Men's Fit. Um, and then, we'll mix it up with some sports coats, some shirts, some slacks, and, show them how to make 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7 outfits out of that. So
Mhm.
I think the value add is for the client. When most of the guys that come through my door, whether they're coming home from prison, whether they're coming from homeless shelters, training programs, welfare to work programs, mental and substance abuse programs, or some of them have none of those issues. They're low income and they can't afford to go to stores and buy, retail. So um, I think the value for them is that they look and feel good. It's
Wow.
interesting. I always tell people, you know, come to Men's Fit, come volunteer to suit a guy. You will leave there in a totally different perspective than when you came in, because the look on that gentleman's face, especially to know that someone actually cares, and then to be able to put him in that suit and to show him the before and after, it's amazing, and it's a huge boost to their self confidence.
Wow. I was excited about interviewing you because I did want to talk about the event, but everything that you've talked about towards your organization is just so inspirational. So I thank you on two accounts to talk about not just Men's Fit, but as well as your upcoming event. But there are two additional fashion questions I do want to ask before we go to just a few other questions. First one, have you gone to the Met in New York?
No, I would love to. How do I get a ticket to that? I'm gonna ask Jen Sue. She's our red carpet host for the event. I'm gonna ask her, how do you get a ticket to the Met? Oh my God. A fabulous avant-garde outfit would be amazing.
Well, we will certainly leave that as some open opportunity for those who listen to this podcast to maybe reach out to you. All right, the second one is tie or no tie? And then most importantly, when did that change?
Tie or no tie? You mean for the event or in general?
Or for men, wearing a tie and not wearing a tie. And when did that?
Well, I think it changed after COVID.
Hmm,
Again, getting to the more relaxed look. We tell our clients, if you're going on a job interview, we gave you a suit, wear the suit, shirt, tie, wear
hmm,
the whole ensemble. And here's why. One is we've had clients come back to us and say that's why they got the job. Their skill set was even with the rest of the applicants. So the employer had to make a judgment call. And because John came in a suit and Doug came in jeans, that was the difference right there. So even though that person may not have to have worn a suit on his job, look your best, put your best foot forward, as they say.
wow.
So in that, as it relates to Men's Fit, that's what we tell our guys. In general, I mean, that's a judgment call based on where you're going. I mean, it's like you don't have to wear a tie to the zoo event.
Hmm,
Fashionably chic,
right. Great.
you
That
know.
was that was kind of my last question.
Yeah, yeah. Come in a cool sport coat. I mean, the other part of the who wore it best is take a walk on the wild, and so we're encouraging people to wear their favorite animal print.
Wow. So, a couple of questions just in general about the nonprofit space
Sure.
that you're in. Are there any particular trends that you see that are taking place that's really impacting the nonprofit space?
I think as I talk to people, and people hear more about the major issues going on. I mean, obviously in Philadelphia, crime is a big issue. Gun violence, there's an office of violence prevention. People tend or want to be more involved in that space in terms of starting a nonprofit or fitting into another nonprofit. Those are some of the things that I'm starting to see a little bit more. A lot of gun violence prevention for youth
Hmm,
is something that's very prevalent. As a matter of fact, I think Madam Parker speaks to that in many of her speeches too. So that's the one trend that I see happening
mhm.
because that's an issue in Philadelphia. Well, it's an issue around the country, but
Right, right.
because we live here, we're more tied to Philadelphia.
How about misconceptions? Are there misconceptions in the nonprofit space that you'd like to maybe take a few minutes and give some clarity around that?
Yeah, I think a couple. One, I think people don't look at nonprofits as bona fide businesses, and they are. The only difference between being nonprofit and not is tax exempt status
Hmm,
from the IRS. That's it. You can write stuff off. It should function like a regular business with all the bells and whistles. I think also people think that you can't make any money. which is false.
Mm,
That's a line item in the budget that your board approves. Done. So,
mm,
those to me have been two misconceptions that I hear people saying, "Oh, I can't really make any money." Well, if you were starting a for-profit business, you weren't going to make any money, real money, in the first few years anyway.
wow.
So, I think that the difference is that it's a tied to some passion that that person has in order to start the nonprofit. As I tell people all the time when I do talk about people wanting to start businesses, whether they're for or not, you got to have a strong why. Why are you doing this? Because when the invoice is not paid in 45 days and you got to pay a bill, what do?
Yeah.
So your why has to be strong enough to keep you in the game.
Wow. I like that. One last question. How has innovation or technology begun to either affect your work or nonprofit that you've seen?
Well, it's so a couple ways. In terms of the nonprofit itself, I mean, obviously, we're starting to use, we're starting to take advantage of more of the technology we can. For instance, at this event, I mean, everything is online, QR codes, everything. So, I mean, that's been a blessing for us to have. I mean, before, the old school way was, you did the bid sheets, which can be fun if you're doing a small event or a small auction. But on this type of scale, I mean, technology really has played a piece in that, as well as the videos and stuff that we're going to be showing. Just being able to do that as opposed to, having, 5 and 6 people speak at an event, which takes up, 30 minutes of time.
Mm,
Not that what they're saying is not valuable, but most people only retain 7 to 10% of what they hear on a first time basis.
mm,
So if you can do that, and most people are visual, so if you can do that through technology, I think it lends itself to a more um, productive event.
well,
And if I could just say one more thing about Men's Fit, I know we talked about the fashion piece of Men's Fit, which is our first point of contact with every client we interact with. But we also have a serious career development program. And so I always like to bring this up because those components too, they are wraparound services, workshops, regarding employment, but also life. Like we have a huge mental health program, we have a financial literacy component, we have a huge sort of public speaking, effective networking piece, we have a fatherhood piece, healthy relationships, healthy marriages. So we do offer some wraparound services, and we always include that in our success because for every one guy we help, we actually help 5 people in his family.
wow.
So when I tell you that in February we saw our 1,500 client, we're at 16 something now. If you multiply that by 5, that really is the impact over the last 17 years in Philadelphia.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up because often we look at just that individual, but it is a family that they really are connected with. Not to mention, from a generational perspective, they set a great role model for that next generation. So,
Correct. Correct. And their family. Some of them, they reconnect with their family. Now they're contributing members of society. Now they're able to provide. Mom maybe not doesn't have to do it all by herself now. So
and like I said, I could sit and talk to you forever about all this stuff, but I'm sure someone is in the back saying, Greg, remember, we do have a bit of a time limit. A couple questions I want to ask you about the event, and then we'll kind of wrap up with what you'd like to say. So it's June 5th, once again, from what time to what time?
6 to 10 at the
And how much
Philadelphia
are
Zoo.
tickets?
Tickets are 200.
And what's the wow factor? What is it that people are just going to go absolutely crazy over?
I don't think I can limit that to one. I mean, let's start with the fact that I can get this many elected officials from the state of Pennsylvania in one room, that in and of itself is a major feat. So I
Kudos.
think people will be excited about that. This is always a fun show. I mean, the banter has already started in City Hall. Oh no, I'm going to win. Oh no, no, I'm winning. Da, 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 so that all that's going on, which sort of entices and gets people excited about the event. Number two, we've got a great cast of judges, including former Philadelphia Eagle player and huge Men's Fit supporter Malcolm Jenkins. So we're excited about him being able to judge and be there and participate. Our clients, we will have some of we're calling them Men's Fit fellas in the show. So we're excited about that. Um, we've got designers from Bravo's Project Runway. We've got Project Oscar, who was just on All Stars and placed fourth. We've got Nancy, who came in runner-up season 18, and then we've got Renee Hill here, and she was in season 17. So the fact that we have that kind of talent in Philadelphia, one, and that they are interested in participating in an event like this just speaks volumes. And then last but not least, well, I shouldn't say last but not least, our honorees as well. Our honorees, we've got, Ron Davis from Parks, we've got Stephanie Costa from Comcast. And I know many people, if you don't know him, you've heard of him. You've heard him on the radio, you've seen his billboards. Dean Weitzman of My Philly Lawyer is also a huge supporter of MenzFit. And then the nightcap is the fact that NBC is our sponsor, our media sponsor, and both leading ladies, I'm calling them, Jacqueline London, anchor, and Brittany Shipp, chief meteorologist, it will be our co-MCs. So I think people are just in for a treat. I mean, the zoo is the zoo. So the fact that we're in that environment, it'll be a very friendly environment. We've planned some wonderful things to create a total experience for everybody. So I think people will have a good time.
Wow. Well, now I can see why it takes 2 years to put together the production because there are so many moving pieces. Well, Rhonda, it has been a pleasure to speak with you. And like I said, we are entitled Something to Say. So I guess in closing, what do you have to say?
I have to say, get your ticket. You don't want to miss. You just don't want to miss when fashion meets animal print on the runway.
Wow.
June 5th, 6 to 10. GiveButter.com is the ticket link. And we'd love to see you on June 5th. And Gregory, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate your support and your friendship.
Well, Rhonda, all I can say to you is I have a million questions, but I will be there. So whenever you have a break, I may hit you with maybe 2 or 3 additional questions. But more importantly, I really appreciate you sharing all the insights and most importantly, the passion that you've shared around this particular project. So I'm sure it will not only influence individuals to buy tickets, but honestly, I think for our listeners to learn more about MenzFit. So thank you for so much and joining us today. And listeners, I hope you've enjoyed today's episode, special bonus episode of Something to Say. Without any doubt, the voices of diverse individuals can offer some great insight and certainly some great benefit to each and every one of you. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations with the voices of those individuals as we continue to produce Something to Say. So until next time, this has been Greg DeShields. Have a great day.
Thank you for tuning in to Something to Say. We trust you found some valuable insights and takeaways that can help you find your passion. Don't miss out on future episodes. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on your preferred platform. We value your feedback and suggestions, so let us know how we can serve you better. Keep the conversation going and stay inspired until we meet again. Take care and happy listening.